Well, greetings everyone, and welcome once again to another Thursday night of the Sports Crib, presented by the Sports Crib Network. Let's go ahead and get our little commercials out of the way. If you're on YouTube, you can like and subscribe, and all cash donations, as you can see, go to $ JE King 3. All proceeds go to uh, the promotion of the station and our different website locations. So now that we have all that out of the way, let's get to down to the program, and let's start with a little baseball. Greetings, Bill. How are you doing this evening?
Good to be here. Good to be any place, I guess.
Well, I always say, another day above ground is a good day. So,
Indeed.
you know, uh, you haven't quite got to that stage yet, but you
Getting
know.
closer every day. Well, I had a birthday about 5 days ago, so getting a
Oh,
little closer.
belated happy birthday, my man. So, well, how did you celebrate?
So, uh, 30. What year is this? 30. About 31, almost 31 years ago, I started a theater company called Impact, and Impact had a show opening called Red Summer, which is about the summer of 1919, at Governor State University here in well, it's not even the south suburbs; it's south of the south suburbs of Chicago. But we had a show opening at a school called Governor State University of a show called Red Summer, and so it just happened to fall on my birthday. So I saw a bunch of people I haven't seen in a very long time. Uh, the musical director who also like played at my wedding. His name's Sean Wallace. I saw his younger brother. So to put this in perspective, the last time I saw Jason Wallace, the younger brother of my friend Sean Wallace, who's played with a bunch of people like Alicia Keys. He's played with John Legend, a bunch of people, right? Very accomplished musician.
Does he live out here in L.A.?
Oh, he lives here, but he's worked all over the place.
Okay, okay.
But yeah, so Sean's worked with a lot of different people. But his younger brother played football at Hampton University. And the last time I saw Jason, he finished up his football career and was trying to get into becoming an agent, actually. He was studying for the agent exam. He now has a daughter who's older now than the last time I saw him. His daughter is 24. The last time I saw him, he was 23 probably. So that's how long it's been since I've seen some of those people. And she is now a graduate assistant on the uh, staff, the Lady Panthers, I think is what they're called, staff for women's basketball at Governor State University. So that's how long it's been since I've seen him. The last time I saw him, he had recently stopped being a student athlete, was studying to become an agent. Now he has a daughter who's an assistant or a graduate assistant, soon to be an assistant coach.
Hey,
So
man.
been a while.
you know, yeah. I sometimes look back at my phone and think that this is an obituary column. Yeah.
My,
I mean, when you get in your 70s, I mean, who do you call? People in their 60s, people in their,
yeah.
so
So it's funny. My father had a nickname for the obituaries. He called me Old Lady Sports Page. But yeah. As you move down, so this was people talk about like 50. 50 doesn't seem like a big deal to me. This seemed like a big deal to me because when you fill out surveys and stuff like that, I'm no longer in the 45. You know what I'm talking about? So now the next category down. When I fill out surveys, it's like, nope, I'm not in 45% anymore. So yeah, I've been the second to last one before they just go to infinity, right?
yeah. See, I'm in that infinity
You're in the
box.
one to infinity, right?
I'm in the other. You did, it's like you.
I've only got I've only got one more left before I do the same one with
Yeah,
you. I've got one more after this one, and then yes, like you, I'll
well,
be into infinity and beyond. Yes.
yeah. I can't wait, for that, still here yet. It's so yeah. But yeah, so Mr. Mr. Wills, excuse me,
Yes, the late great
passed
Maury Wills. Yes.
this week, and and I guess you want to call that a sarcastic chuckle because I was looking at the statistics
Yep.
before before I even put in the last part. But
Yep.
if you just read the man's statistics,
Correct.
three-time world champion,
Yep.
1962 MVP,
Yep.
281 lifetime batting average,
Correct.
2,134 hits,
Yes. Yep.
586 stolen
That's
bases.
of course what he's known for was his speed. Yep.
Right, first, and I didn't even include in here the first man to get to steal 100 bases or more.
Yep.
Uh, but this was all with 1,942 plate appearances, and yet this man is not in the Hall of Fame.
And he's only, I think, been a finalist twice. I mean, he's only come even reasonably close a couple of times, to be perfectly honest. And I'm a bit of a person that gets into the statistical analysis of baseball. So to give you an idea of how he compares to other similar players, also a two-time Gold Glove winner, right? He's been Player of the Year, as you mentioned. He was a All-Star Game MVP. He had a 330 lifetime on base percentage. Uh, not a huge amount of power, a 331 lifetime slugger, only 20 career home runs. So what works against him is he got a little bit lost in the sauce, right? People realized, I hope, that he was a great player, but I don't think there was a sense at any point that he was the best player or even maybe the second or third best player at his position at any one time. There was always a sense there was somebody a little bit better than him, except maybe at stealing bases. I mean, for a while there until Lou Brock came along, he was the king. And then obviously that's also what hurts him is that Lou Brock comes along just a handful of years after. I think Lou Brock breaks in 62 or 63, so about a dozen years or so after he hits the well, actually not even a dozen years. I think Wills breaks in 59. Yeah, Wills breaks in 59. So really it's only about maybe 3 or 4 years later that Brock breaks in. So that's what hurts him is that Lou Brock, if you look at their statistics sort of side by side, is basically just a little bit better at everything. So I think that hurts him. If there had been a bigger gap between he and Lou Brock historically, I think it might have soaked in how good Maury Wills was. But it hurts him that Lou Brock comes along almost right after him, steals more bases, hits for a higher average, has more power, right? I mean, sort of better at everything, for lack of a way of putting it. And I think that hurts what people. But he was really a groundbreaker. There have been a lot of players like him in the Negro leagues, right? But he was one of the first guys to play like that in the integrated major leagues. So the Negro leagues were full of guys like Maury Wills, right? Cool Papa Bell and a bunch of other guys who played that way. And I hope that this may be his untimely passing leads younger fans, especially if they really care about the game's history, to go back and look at his career and look at what he did and how he did it and things like that. But yeah, I think he's hurt a little bit by the comparisons to other similar players who just were a little bit better. And then obviously after Brock, you've got Tim Raines, and after Tim Raines, you've got, or right around the time of Tim Raines, you get Ricky Henderson, and all those guys like him could steal bases, but they all had more power, right? I mean, Ricky Henderson had a 20. I think both. I can't remember. Raines had a 20 home run. I think both of them might have had 20 home run years, and Wills had 20 home runs in his career. So that I think works against him. And I think Henderson came up a little bit above him in, I think about around 290 something. I think he's about maybe 10 points higher in batting average, way higher in slugging percentage, way higher in basically all the other numbers, more hits. He played longer also, obviously. I mean, Ricky played forever. Brock, I mean, that's the thing. That's what I think works against him is that everybody that he's compared to is a little bit better than him. But I mean, I hope that this at least inspires people to go back and look at his career. That's what I'm hoping, though. I am hoping that happens. That people say it's just tough, because we know the Baseball Hall of Fame is the toughest one to get into, right? There's no other Hall of Fame that is as exclusive, partially because they have so much history to look at. I mean, but like I said, you compare him to a guy like Ricky Henderson, 297 career home runs, over 3,000 hits, over 400 on base percentage for his career. I mean, basically better everything. And then Brock is a little better. I mean, so that's the thing I think works against him, is that there's nobody who's in the Hall of Fame who's known for the same things he's known for who wasn't a little bit better. I think is what works against him. And then in the case of Brock, Brock's a 293 lifetime guy, not quite 300, but not far off from it. 410 slugging percentage, 343. So it's closer between the two of them. 45.3 career WAR for Brock. Brock's a 6-time All-Star, 2-time World Series, and once again, though he's never MVP, he was Major League Player of the Year, which is similar but not quite the same, but a similar thing. And 293, 149 home runs to 20. So Brock had more pop. Brock's over 3,000 hits. So if Wills had gotten over 3,000 hits or was over 300 lifetime, because they really care about this in baseball, if he was an over 300 lifetime batting average guy, or over 3,000, and preferably both. If he gets the 3,000 hits and is a 300 lifetime batting average guy, he's in, right? That's it. He's in, especially with the throwing the stolen bases on top. But with Brock getting over 900, and both Raines and Henderson getting over 1,000, I mean, obviously Ricky getting 1,410, a record that will not only never be broken, but I don't think he'll be able to go over 1,000 again, because the way the game has changed, people just don't steal bases like that anymore. And they don't like it. I mean, they sort of discourage you almost from base stealing nowadays. So that's the issue, right? That's what I think really, really hurts him to a certain extent, is the sense that all the sort of similar players, the guys like Tim Raines, the guys like Kenny Lofton. Now, Kenny Lofton's not in the Hall of Fame, but Kenny Lofton also has slightly better numbers. And this thing that makes baseball somewhat different from the others is that people do compare across eras, right? They do it all the time in baseball. You do it less in football. You do it almost none at all in basketball. But, the Rock, who finally made it in, Rock Raines, right? 7-time All-Star, 2-time World Series guy, Silver Slugger, which Wills never came close to. He won a batting title, which, once again, nowhere close. 294 lifetime average. 69.4 career WAR, 385 on base. He comes up with 170 career homers, which is, a little above Brock, but well below Ricky Henderson. And once again, another guy who stole a lot of bases, 808, right? Another member of the 800 stolen base club, which, once again, we may never. I mean, there's a lot of guys in the old days who stole, like George Case, and people have forgotten guys in the 800 home run stolen base club. It's funny. We always remember everybody in the 500 home run club, right? Guys like Mize and Kiner and Eddie Mann, all those guys, right? People always remember the 500 home run guys. But to some extent, it's harder to get the 800 stolen bases to get the 500 home runs. But once again, Rock Raines makes it because his numbers are slightly better across the board than a guy like Wills. Wills was on let's be honest, a offensively deficient, I think it'd be a fair way to put it, team with the Dodgers. The old joke, right, around 1963, 64, when people said, Sandy Koufax pitched a no-hitter. Oh, who won? The Dodgers of that era were a pitching-based team, I think would be a fair way to put it. So I'm going to hit on one other guy that's sort of compared very often to Wills, Kenny Lofton, who I mentioned before. Terrific all-around athlete, right? A basketball player at Arizona, and also, like Tony Gwynn, terrific basketball player, and obviously a great baseball player. 68.4 career WAR, 2,428 hits, 130 home runs. Not a big power guy, but 130 home runs is still more than 20. 299, almost 300, 299 lifetime batting average. 622 stolen bases, which for Kenny Lofton's era was a lot. But like I said, I don't know if we'll ever see another guy get to 800 stolen bases. .372 lifetime on base percentage. Not a great slugging. I mean, not a power guy. .423 slugging is not amazing, but for a guy that's basically a slap hitter, that's still decent. And once again, 4-time Golden Glover, right? So Lofton was a terrific glove guy too. And Lofton's a borderline case for the Hall of Fame. He's not in yet, but it's a guy that some people are pushing. Now, if Lofton gets in, maybe the old timers committee, or veterans committee, will take another look at a guy like Wills.
That's what I was thinking. Maybe he'll get in under the veterans, or
maybe. I mean,
as you called it, the old time.
They actually used to call it that, as you know. Like if you go back, they
yeah. Good evening, Mr. Scott.
Yeah.
Greetings,
how are you doing?
Greetings, gentlemen. Greetings, gentlemen. Greetings.
Yeah.
Yes. We were just talking about Maury Wills and his passing.
I heard the tail end of that. And so now Maury, he's not in the Hall of Fame, right?
Nope.
No.
He hasn't.
I mean, what a travesty! What a travesty! I mean, here's somebody who, the greatest stolen base person in our era for sure. We've never seen anybody steal bases like him, and a manager. Long career, he's not in already. That's a travesty.
Yeah, and he's only come close twice. In fact,
it's I don't know what to say about that. I thought he was already in.
No, he's never even come terribly close.
No. I was going to say he hasn't even come close to getting in. But as you said, Mr. Scott, for your generation, my generation, he came along before the Ricky Hendersons and the Lou Brocks and, so
100 stolen bases in an era where that really meant something. I mean, that won you games, stealing bases.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it to some extent, it means even more now because we'll never see anyone. So I was talking about comparable guys, right? So the last time we saw guys really steal bases, I mean, Kenny Lofton was the last really master base stealer. I mean, Joe Morgan was a terrific terrific on the base pass, but he was a more complete player in that he could hit for more power and higher average than a guy like Wills. And so Wills gets sort of, I mentioned this, sort of lost in the sauce, right? Because he's sort of compared to guys like Brock, who, once again, was a slightly better all-around player. Brock had a little more power, hit for a slightly higher average.
Like you said, if he hadn't came along right on the heels, it might have been
that's what hurts him. Right. Brock coming along just a handful of years after him and being slightly better.
He played on some great Dodger teams. I mean, these were some actually great Dodger teams he played on. But because I know when they played the Twins in 1965 with Sandy Koufax and Don Drysdale.
One of the greatest.
Oh, man. Mudcat Grant pitched for us, hit a home run in the game and shut them out. And in the seventh game, Sandy Koufax was unhittable.
Yes.
I mean, I'm telling you, he was unhittable in that seventh game, pitched the whole way.
And he was in agony the entire time. That's the crazy thing, is his elbow was killing him. And for him to pitch like that in so much pain was
his career didn't last that long either.
Well, it couldn't. I mean, that's why he told the manager, we went to Walter Alston and said, pitch me as much as you need to because I'm pretty much done. And he was right. I mean, he was done pretty soon after that, but he had bone chips in his elbow and arthritis and all this other stuff. He was in agony, but he just gutted it out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, different era and.
But again, those Dodger teams, he was a big part of that. When Maury Wills and his career is exemplary. I mean, I know that there were some things, I think some legal kind of things. I don't know, Bill or JK3, if you can tell me there was something, I don't know. I mean,
he palled around with some people that the commissioner didn't like. I mean, I hope that's not part of it. I hope it's not. I think the main thing, like I said, is he gets sandwiched, for lack of a better putting it, between guys who have better numbers. And he was never seen as the best at his position also, right? He was always seen
because
as
there were so many good people, Bill. Think of who played in that era. When you look at every game,
that's what we're saying.
That's what I was explaining. That's exactly what I'm saying. That was the point of the argument I was making, that because the term, when I use the term lost in the sauce, it's because of how good the sauce is that he got lost in it.
Yeah.
Guys,
and he didn't hit those other two magic numbers. If he gets to either 300 lifetime batting average or 3,000 hits, he gets in. But he didn't get to either one.
Neither did Kirby Puckett.
Did the Yankees actually end up costing themselves probably about 100 and
well, Kirby Puckett
80
lifetime 307 hitter, Mr. Scott. So yeah, he did.
Okay, he did have the 300.
Yeah. Back when was it, Bill? Back in March when the Yankees offered Judge 220.
It was a nice size. It was a nice size package, but Mr. Judge wisely bet on himself. But he's about to cash out.
But there's another guy over across town that also has a very sizable bank account.
Sure.
And he's talking about offering Judge somewhere in the neighborhood of $350 million.
Yep.
Now we know the Yankees. I mean, it's not that I'm not going to say that the Yankees can't match it, because the Yankees have that kind of money. But Bill, what do you think are the chances? If they only are, I mean, come on, they lowballed him the first time. So, I mean, what do you think the chances are now that they're going to get in a bidding war for Aaron Judge?
Well,
do you think Judge is going to be a Yankee next year?
I think he probably will. I think that sometimes, and this may be something that you've run across before, sometimes somebody will just drive up the price on a player so that you'll pay that price, and now you're out of the market for the player they really want. I don't know if you've run across this before, Mr. King, but that happens, especially in baseball. It happens in other sports too, but particularly in baseball. Somebody will, and Steinbrenner used to do it sometimes too, back when the late, great, George Steinbrenner himself was alive. Usually he wanted the player, but sometimes he didn't. Sometimes he would just say, I'm going to make so pay X amount for this guy. I'm going to tell them I'll pay such and such, knowing they would have to go up and match it or exceed it. And then now this other player, they can't go after everybody, right? So once you get them to commit, especially that kind of money to this one player, there's these other players now that you can get that they can't afford to be in the running for. So I think that they want to drive up the price on as much as I think the Mets want to drive up the price on Judge, so that now when some of these top pitchers come on the market, the other players come on the market. Not that they don't have the money for that too. There's no hard cap in baseball, but you pay a luxury tax. And some, ownership groups have come out and said, we don't care. The Dodgers ownership group has said, we don't care about the luxury tax. How much? Sure, we'll pay it. They don't care. The Yankees haven't come out and said that, and at least not explicitly, but we'll see how much they care about it. But they could afford to pay that too. I think that this is essentially a ploy by the Mets to drive up the asking price. And, maybe they'll actually whip out the checkbook and pay him. But I think mostly what they do is they want to drive up the price from the Yankees.
What do you think, Mr. Scott? You think Judge will be in the Yankee uniform next year?
All rise. All rise for the Judge. Okay, I was in right field last time he was here. All rise. It's all on him. He can decide whatever he wants to do. Yep. They offered him a package, and he said that's not enough, and they didn't offer him any more. So he said, okay, well, we'll see who else can ante up. Who else is going to ante up? And so it's all he can decide exactly whatever he wants to do. He can go to the Mets and live just where he is, no disruption in his life, just a different spring training place, probably, but that's the only real disruption. So it's all on him. I think he's going to go to the highest bidder. I mean, I think that the Yankees should have stepped up when they had the chance. And how many times can people say you're overrated or you're bragging, and it's like Muhammad Ali said, it ain't bragging if you can do it. And so he did it. I mean, he's going for the 60 home runs, and they had a chance to do it. And so the price is up. It's on him. I wish I was his agent.
Yeah.
Bill, is he going to be? Is he going to complete the Triple Crown?
Well, I mean, that's obviously very difficult to do. I'm going to say he ends up coming very close. I think he comes up probably less than 2 points short on the batting average. I think he ends up getting very close, though.
What do you think, Mr. Scott? It's been a while since we had a Triple Crown winner, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's got the home runs, and it looks like the RBIs are right there.
Yep, he's got those.
There's really nobody that's kind of your classic average hitter that's really up there now. There's not really a classic guy gets on base and really kind of stretches that average out. Nobody like that. So he's got a chance, and that would actually just take him over the top. That would take it over the top as far as paychecks. They probably have to give him part of a team. That's what I would do if I was him. I'd say I want part of the team.
Yeah. So not just Miguel Cabrera have we had a Triple Crown winner, and unfortunately, it'll be interesting to see, like I said, how it all plays out. I'd love to see somebody do it again.
But now how old is Judge now? I mean, he's in his 30s, isn't he?
29? I don't know.
20, I think he's 28, 29.
No, I think he's in his 30s. He might be 31.
Well, let's see here.
I mean, that's a factor.
Because he's 30 on the nose. He is. He's 30. He's not 30. He's not 31. He's 30.
He's 30. Okay. 31 this year? 31
no,
this year?
turned 30 in April.
Okay.
He turned 30 this past April. He turned 30 earlier in the season. So
that kind of figures into this too, I think. I mean, he's
in baseball where the money's guaranteed, so it doesn't figure as much as in football. And obviously, not that you can't get hurt, because people get hurt in baseball, but you don't have to worry about trauma injury, right? It's usage injury. So he's a bigger guy, and those guys don't tend to play as long at a high level as some smaller guys do, but he should have another 7 to 8 peak earning years left, unless he suffers some sort of catastrophic injury. He takes very good care of himself. You've seen him up close, Mr. Scott. You know what I'm talking about.
Oh man,
he is no stranger to the strength and conditioning regimen.
Well,
I mean, if you were to see him Myles Garrett like from the back, only the fact that he's a couple of shades lighter would give away which one is which. He is, once again, a person who was a legitimate 4-star recruit as a tight end, almost went to Michigan or Stanford to play football. So he is a rare specimen.
I think it was last year I was at a game, and he was on first base standing next to Miguel Sano, and he made Miguel Sano look like me. I mean, and Miguel Sano was about 250, 6'3".
Yep.
And he stood right there next to him, and I said, "My goodness," So yeah, he's quite the specimen.
Yeah, he's a very impressive physical specimen, and he's a rare, and he's not an amazing defensive player. He's a good, solid defensive outfielder.
Good arm.
He's got a tremendous arm. Yeah, he's got a tremendous arm. And like I say, he's got for a guy who's 272 pounds, he has pretty good range. I mean, that's the big difference. It's guys that look like that.
He plays center field. He plays center field a lot. So I mean, come on.
That's the difference. Guys that look like him didn't used to be able to move like that.
No, they used to be catchers, right?
Well, guys even the catchers weren't 272. I mean. Well,
and
like
that
Tony
tall.
Lombardi would be a giant. He was 6'2.5" and 233 pounds, and people thought he was a giant. So that's how much things have changed. I mean, people just stared at Willie McCovey. He was 6'5", but he wasn't 272. He was probably 227, 228.
If that.
So that's the big difference. Is just the body types. You look at we talk about the Yankees. I mean, Giancarlo is absolutely enormous, and the only reason you don't realize how big he is because Aaron Judge is standing there. So if he weren't standing next to Aaron Judge, you realize what an absolute freak of nature Giancarlo Esposito is. Sanchez is enormous. I mean, this team's full of huge guys. They've got 4 guys over 240 in their starting lineup. It's an enormously huge team. But I do worry about that a little bit, because when you do need to steal a base or even just go from first to third on a single or things like that, some of these, I mean, Judge moves well, but some of those guys are not super on the base paths. I mean, they don't build teams where they used to. You'd have a couple of power hitters. I mean, look at those great Kansas City Royals teams. You have a couple of power hitters, but everyone else could run, right? Mayberry and Brett, could take you deep, but everyone else on that team could flat out fly. They had speed every place else. Willie Wilson was one of the fastest guys, and they had a lot of guys with speed. And the way this team is built, you've got a bunch of guys who like to look football players, and then I worry a little bit about defense, and I worry a little bit about if you do need to actually stretch, like I said, get that extra base. I just worry about that. I miss teams having different types of ball players. And they said guys who can lay down a bunt, guys who can, take 2 and hit to right. I mean, it's sort of a dying art, right? Situational baseball.
Well, it is. And so what they've done, Bill, now I hear they're going to get rid of, you can't shift no more. They say they're going to change the whole rules of baseball that you can't play, the second baseman can't play little right like in softball. Can't be like in softball, be the middle fielder.
Right.
So they're going to take that out.
That's part of the new ruling. You're right.
Well, but are they going to take away the guy gets on second base if it's in extra innings? A ghost runner.
Yes.
They're gonna, I believe they're going to take that away too, aren't they?
I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, that's again, while I was.
But then that's little league. I mean, come on, it's. And I people always say, "Well, you're upset because things ain't the way they used to be." Well, I know things aren't the way. They'll never be the way they used to be. They're not going to be the way they were yesterday. I mean, I get that,
right?
But I don't understand why it can't be better. And some of those things kind of just.
I mean, that's the thing that we just talked about with baseball. The whole thing that baseball builds so much of its sort of mystique on is how comparable things are from one era to the next. And when you start tweaking certain things, you take away that comparability from one era to the next. Of course, your IBRs are elevated because you've got this, you said, ghost runner. I mean, there's certain things that obviously, I know we're not going to go back to guys, starting 34 or 36 games and finishing 2/3 of them. I know that's gone. Like, that's not coming back. We're not going to see guys finishing 22, 23 games a year. That's
no, that's over.
I understand that's over. I know that the slap hitter is never going to be in vogue again. Freddie Patek, you're gone forever. We won't be seeing his like again. I get that. I understand. But I do sort of think that the pendulum may have swung a little bit too far, where I won't say they're encouraging strikeouts, but it's no longer embarrassing, right? In the old days, a veteran would develop, 97 strikeout flu late in the season, because it was embarrassing to strike out 100 times, right? There were guys who would have more home runs than strikeouts. Ted Kluszewski, 3 times in his career, had more home runs than strikeouts. DiMaggio did it a handful of times. And now, the power hitters strike out like crazy nowadays, right? You don't
now you don't care if you get struck out 100 times.
Oh, no, nobody.
There was just a few of those guys back there. There was a guy on the White Sox, a guy named Dave Nicholson, and he was known for the strikeout. But if he ever got a hold of one,
Dave Kingman was cut from a similar cloth.
Dave Kingman said,
all or nothing, yes. But that was frowned on, right? The all or nothing guy was frowned upon. Not anymore, though. Now they embrace it.
Right. They were an anomaly. They wouldn't, and they were kind of laughed at in a way.
Right. Because Dave Kingman would go into contract negotiations. Hey, I hit 47 home runs. Yeah, but he hit 228, Dave. Get the hell out of here, right? So that's how things have changed. That they don't laugh at the guy who hits 228 but has 47 home runs. Then it's like, oh wow, 47 home runs. They don't care about the fact that you struck out, twice every game.
Yeah, those days are over. Bill, I want you to kind of explain this to me because I don't understand the reason for getting rid of it, and that's the tiebreakers. Uh, MLB has sort of officially gotten rid of the tiebreakers, and to me, I mean, that now we lose that extra 163rd game. I mean,
Right.
I thought that was, like part of
They were
kind of the mystique.
They were fantastic. They were so
Right.
filled with drama. They were
Right.
amazing. And I don't understand why. First of all, they were ratings bonanzas. I mean, like football.
That's number one.
Right. Football.
When baseball gets ratings, I mean, how, come on, what, I mean,
Right.
it's like a dog with feathers, right? I mean,
right. So football is like, you guys are getting rid of it. Like we might institute it, right? You're tied. Oh, we'll have a play-in game. Getting rid of game 163, which was used to separate division or wild card winners, I thought was one of the few smart things baseball had done in the last few decades, quite frankly. So now instead they'll be determined by head-to-head record, intra-division record, then inter-division record, then last half of intra-league games. And then last but not least, the all-important fifth tiebreaker, James, is the last half of intra-league games plus one and continuing until the tie is broken. So guess what? You get to use all of that math that you learned in 8th grade to try to figure out who will be making it. Like I said, baseball gets so many things wrong recently. They got this one thing right, and they're like, nope, we refuse to keep getting this right. Sure, why not?
Well, see, Bill, there are people that will argue, well, the DH has ruined baseball. There are people that will say, and then for the years that the DH was in the American League and wasn't in the National, they said, well, what does this mean? It's too different. It's not making any sense. So there are people that just really are traditionalists, and it's the old, Bill, as I say, I've made my statements about the rap game. I don't even want to go down that rabbit hole now because it's just, I don't want to even start that.
Are you going to somehow blame
me on it? And I can just
blame the DH.
I can debunk that thing from now on until the cows come on. But anyway, and so those things are really, in the changes are here. The differences, it's, like we say in football, I used to watch the games in field position. They get a first down, 2 first downs and punt. Well, then they push them back further. The other team doesn't get a first down, and next thing they're in field goal range. They're winning that way. It's not throwing 100 yards. It's not throwing. And so I still think there's different ways to win these games, and I think it's coaching. I think analytics is another thing that I'm definitely against. Oh, can't stand it. Makes me sick. Makes me want to vomit when I think about it.
Well, it's fine, but at least figure out which things you're reacting to, because half the things you named have nothing to do with analytics. But getting back to them getting rid of one of these few good things that they like. Are they going to televise like the people sitting in the room instead, figuring out who's making it? Like, is that we're going to show instead of the play-in game? Because they really were onto something. The play-in games were great television, and to see the players playing. I mean, not the players don't play hard, but I mean, let's be honest. Baseball is a very long season, and you can't. It's not like football. You can't actually get up for every game. And baseball players admit this. When you talk to them, off the record, it's like, you know what? That Tuesday day after night game, I was just trying to get through it. Like they won't admit it. Like obviously, to someone who's covering the game, but like years later, it's like, yeah, some of those games, I was just trying to finish them. I just wanted to get through it. So maybe 2 days later, I was really locked back in. It's 162. I get that, but that last game, that play-in game 163, you saw guys managing harder, playing these angles, guys trying stuff, shaking up their batting order, all kinds of kind of interesting things. Like I said, this baseball really was onto something, and like I said, it just feels so silly for them to scratch that and then move back to literally people sitting there with, I guess, they're speaking of analytics, right, Mr. Scott? But yeah, I mean, so instead of having a play-in game, they're going to figure out somebody's intra-league last half of the season record to figure out who's getting things like that. I mean, 5 different sets of tiebreakers instead of.
Bill, you're making a very salient point. Is that when you have these games that really mean something, okay? That's what that's what really brings when it really, years ago, my favorite football player when he came up here, Randy Moss. Oh, that was my main man. I'm telling you, when he came up here, he just raised all kind of hell. But they just messed with him, and they said something about, well, and so one of the teammates or one of the guys said, boy, he sure can play what he wants to play. Now that's a down south thing. That's what they say down there, knowing that when it's the 9th inning, that's the man you want up there, okay? And so they turned that around here and said, oh, he said he only plays when he wants to play. I'm like, no, what the hell are you talking about? He never said that. And they held that against him, and they threw that out there. Oh, he only plays when he wants. No. The money's on the line. He's the one you want. That's what they're saying. But they didn't get it. And so that's one of the things that, when you look at when the game is on the line, that's why the Super Bowl is so big. That's why the World Series is so big. That's why the 7th game of the NBA championship is.
Yep.
Mr. Scott, I want to talk a little NBA here, and I can't. When you're here, I cannot talk NBA without talking about your team. You kind of try, you kind of rubbed that in the Pistons' face too when Demetrius was here. But come on, Mr. Scott, you guys gave up way too much to get that player. I mean, you could have got everybody on the Lakers except for LeBron, and draft picks also. I mean, come on, you guys messed it up for the league.
Well, I would think, JK3, maybe you should be the commissioner. Maybe you should.
No, not the commissioner, but maybe a general manager.
2 teams made a deal, and when 2 teams make a deal, they're each trying to get something, and so each team got what they wanted.
Oh yeah,
and so of course, some people are going to be aggrieved of that. Some people will say, "Well, I don't agree," but that's what fans are for. Isn't there a song about that? That's what fans are for. I don't know, but so I think it's going to be very exciting in the West, because I think this makes the Timberwolves a real player in the West, and we're going to see if Karl Anthony Towns, if he really wants to be a man, if he really wants to be one of the big dogs in this league, okay, he's got Rudy Gobert with him. He's got Anthony Edwards, and that's another thing. He's being attacked for some supposed statements he said about. I mean, I don't, I have my own thoughts about that kind of thing, but staying on point here, I think that's a good move. I think the Timberwolves have made the West interesting. I mean, look at the Lakers. Oh, Anthony Davis is China doll. He can't stay healthy. There, Westbrook. Oh, they want to get rid of him. What's his feelings going to be? Seems like he's getting in the rap game. Seems like he's, kind of getting in that rap mentality and clothing, wearing all his old crazy clothes.
Well, now, I don't know what has to do with
Hold on, Bill.
Yeah.
Well, now, it's interesting, Bill, that Mr. Scott mentioned Westbrook because the Lakers just re-signed Dennis Schroder.
Yep.
Now, they also picked up Patrick Beverly. So is Ham telling Westbrook, you might be the 7th man of the year, maybe not even the 6th?
I think what he's saying is we're going to play more small ball. And yes, there's times when he's going to ask him to be the leader of the, your energy group or what you want to call that second wave. But those 3 players you mentioned can all play together, right? Beverly doesn't need the ball to do what he does. In fact, he doesn't need to touch the ball for hours sometimes. I mean, there's whole games where Patrick Beverly can have an effect on a game without touching the basketball. And Schroder is a guy that I would like to see starting the offense more often. And even if you still have Westbrook sometimes finishing a possession, he has to start a possession to finish it. And obviously you want LeBron finishing a lot of possessions too. But in fact, both of them. But if you think of him as a secondary ball handler rather than a primary ball handler, how much better a team have the Lakers become? I think significantly better if Westbrook is now a secondary ball handler. And now that means you can knock LeBron down to being a tertiary ball handler, which I think would be really wise because now he can go down on high post or low post. He can still pass the ball to people. He can still score. But now you're taking some of the wear and tear off of him. He doesn't have to run everything and doesn't have to literally run as much. I mean, we don't talk about it as much as we do talk about it, but we don't talk about it as much as maybe we could. LeBron is not only is he old in terms of the number of years that he is now for a professional athlete, but because his career began so young, and because he's played in the postseason so much, he's even older than his chronological age.
Oh, most definitely. Bill, who do you think is going to have the most impact on their new team? John Wall with the Clippers or Patrick Beverly with the Lakers?
Well, I mean, Wall is going to have more statistical effect, if that's what you're asking. He's going to more of his stuff will show up in the box score. Beverly's impact on the team is going to be mental, right? Because he's the way he approaches playing basketball. And the team will have a bit of a tougher air to it. So it won't be as easy to categorize. It won't be as easy to measure. It won't be nearly as quantifiable what he does as what John Wall does. John Wall's going to have a bunch of points and assists. So that will be easily quantified. Beverly's an attitude guy.
Whose injury do you think has the most impact? Robert Williams for the Celtics or Lonzo Ball for the Bulls?
Oof. I'm going to go Lonzo Ball for the Bulls, at least in part because the Bulls, though they're a much better team than they were a couple years ago, don't have as many good players, right? Certainly losing Will hurts. I mean, Robert Williams is a terrific all-around player who can do a little bit of everything. But they've got a lot of very good basketball players in Boston, and they'll patch it together. Lonzo Ball was, I think, on the precipice of becoming maybe not what his father predicted, because that was crazy talk, but on the precipice of becoming a top 20 player in the league. I think he was right on the edge of that. And this may slow his development. He's still a very young player. Like, we forget how young some of these guys are. But I think, like I said, losing Williams will hurt, but I think the Celtics are better equipped to sort of be able to ride that out. And the Bulls are not as settled as a team.
Well, I want to say, I want to make just one comment on this. It's the Lakers, it comes down to one thing. Only one thing. AD plays 75 games. Okay? AD's healthy. If he's healthy, that this is what that's what makes that whole thing work. Then LeBron can be LeBron, and all the other guys can be who they are. But see, this is what's messed up their whole thing, because he's hurt all the time, and they don't have anybody to do what he's supposed to do, what he does. So, and then the second thing I wanted to mention, and I wanted to see JK3. I mean, you direct questions to people. I'm gonna direct question you. I know how you like that.
I ain't got no problem with it. Come on with it. Come on.
The Boston.
Don't wake up to Monday night, James King. We go ahead.
No. What I wanted to say is the Boston Celtics coach. Now I see something about he's under siege for something, and I never want to comment or be involved in anybody's nocturnal exploits. It's like I wouldn't want anybody to be in mine. So that's not my intent. But I'm saying that I thought I saw something where he's suspended for the whole year.
Well, no, there's a possibility.
Right.
They haven't brought down the punishment yet, but there's a possibility that he may be suspended for up to a year.
For what?
Because as you know, in a lot of organizations, you have rules where you are not allowed to fraternize.
Correct.
Between employees.
Well, doesn't that go both ways? Doesn't that go with each employee? Doesn't that go with
But here's the thing that you may have missed in all of this, Mr. Scott, is that they have a son together. So there's also
I'm out.
Yeah. So the crux of it is that when a person who is the superior, right, the person who is the senior or upper level employee, the onus is on them. The onus is on them. If you are a manager or a C-level executive or anything like that, and you are having an inappropriate relationship with someone who is, if they're equal,
it doesn't have to be
inappropriate.
That's what I was going to say.
It's been going on for a long time. This didn't happen yesterday. It's been going on.
I'm about to tell you, Mr. Scott. You asked the question. The answer is the policies and procedures and the contract you sign say that. That's who says. So when you take a job and the job says there's a morals clause in your contract and you violate it, that's what says that. So when someone is beneath you, right? And when we're talking about just in terms of the actual structure of the organization, one of the things that's in your contract is you cannot, right? That's it. No. Now, if you're both executive vice presidents, go at it, right? But if you are a person who is, a head coach or a president of basketball operations or a vice president or president, whatever, and this person is down here, you can't dip your pen in the company's ink.
But Bill, JK3 just said they had a kid. So this hasn't been going on since yesterday. They knew about this and they didn't do anything about it then. I think he can get out of this. I think he can make him pay him because, hey, they didn't say anything about it. They looked the other way. They knew they got a kid. If that's common knowledge, but I mean, I'm just,
Well, but go ahead, Bill.
Well, he's suspended, but he's not suspended without pay, Mr. Scott. He'll still be getting paid.
Yes.
Yeah, he'll still be getting paid, and
he should be.
It's handled as inside of the organization rather than something that some of the other situations like we had with the Mercury, and so forth. But it is Mr. Scott, especially coming along in our era, and you might talk about the rap game, but there was a lot of us old boys standing on the corner that used to call ourselves being able to rap too. Come on, you might not want your sister coming past the corner. You know what I'm talking about. So
still a different game. It was
yes,
game,
yes, sir. Yeah, hey, yeah, like I said, if these young boys said some of the things that I said to their grandma, they'd find themselves probably, with at the least, some kind of civil lawsuit. What you doing talking about my, parts of my body, and come on, hey. Uh, but maybe he was one of those good guys, Mr. Scott. As Grandma used to say, "Boy, you better stop talking under that woman's clothes." But so, anyway, let's talk about this new poll that came out. We got Georgia, that's number one in the college poll. But a lot of people say that Oklahoma should be a lot higher. Some people say as high as number two. Bill, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, number two seems a little too rich for my blood. Here's what I will say. Right now, to me, it looks like Georgia and then a space and then everybody else. We saw Alabama struggle mightily with Texas. And of course, that happens. Like every year, Alabama has at least one game where they struggle with someone that maybe they should not, right? Florida last year, right? They barely escaped Florida. I think it was a 21-19 game or something with Florida last year. So at least once a year, Alabama has a struggle game. But right now, like I said, Georgia, a gap, and everybody else. Ohio State looks very, very good on both sides of the ball. Obviously, there's a resurgent USC. I think they're not as good on defense as they are on offense, so they're still going to – when they face somebody who can score with them, they're in trouble. Oklahoma is a little improved on defense. I mean, obviously because Venables, of course, was a guy who's cut his teeth on defense, is a great defensive coordinator for many years, but he still doesn't have the personnel that he's used to, right? He's going to have to recruit differently than they recruited in the past to get the kind of guys he wants on defense. But I think they're probably right where they belong in that 4 or 5 area. I still think that, like I said, they're a big gap behind Georgia. I think they're still a little bit behind Alabama. I believe that, Clemson will find themselves somewhere in the mix. They're still finding themselves on offense, but they're tremendous on defense. Venables and company left the shelves very well stocked on defense. Maybe the deepest in terms of pure NFL talent, even more than Georgia with all the guys they lost last year. In terms of just depth of NFL type talent, might be Clemson. In terms of guys who can play at the next level on their defensive roster, Clemson might be number one. They are too deep, almost across the board of NFL talent at almost every position on defense. Their offense is still work in progress. So yeah, I still would have Ohio State above Oklahoma. I still would have Alabama and Georgia above Oklahoma. And then it gets interesting around spot number 4. I think that, that fight for 4 is the interesting fight for me because there's several different teams that have a legitimate shot at it. The SEC has 3 really, really good teams, and then there's a drop-off. And the SEC as a whole isn't fantastic this year, but I think their best teams are very, very good. And, we'll see this week really how it shakes out. Is Tennessee for real? We're going to find out a lot about a lot of teams, quite frankly, in the next – really this week, but in the next couple of weeks in the SEC.
Mr. Scott, who are you pulling for in college football?
Well, I'm always, Big Ten. I'm right there, Big 10 or 12, 13, 14. I forget how many teams they got in it now.
It's still the Big 10. I think it's 12. And there's talk about 14, but they said
Maryland and 10. Anyway. But I want to see how, Ohio State I like, and I really want to see if the Gophers are really for real. I have to really look, I haven't looked to see if they play Ohio State this year, but I think they have Michigan State coming up this week. And I think that should be a real test. I mean, the two teams they've played, a couple of powder puffs, one New Mexico, and I mean, scoring 60 points, but then they lose their top receiver.
Yep.
You know, in that game, they lose Ottoman Bell, which was just that's terrible. He's there, but they have almost an 8th-year quarterback. I mean, this guy, you should see him. I mean, he looks ancient.
Yeah.
See him. He's been there forever. And they have a couple of other players like that have played like 6 or 7 years in the Big Ten.
Yeah, Muhammad Ibrahim's a 6th-year guy too.
Ibrahim is a 6-year guy too, yeah. But he was injured. Now he's had some injuries and that COVID thing, you know, do everything off. So I really want to see how good they are. I mean, I really think that if I haven't checked the schedule to see if they play Ohio State, because if they do, if it's here, I'm going to try to definitely be there. But however, so that's kind of my college thing. I mean, I keep up with my cousins in Georgia and in Alabama, and they go back and forth. You know, I mean, I listen to them. I'm on the phone with them. It's like, you know, I have no dog in the fight. I guess, well, my mom was born in Birmingham, so, you know. So those are always top teams. Yeah. So I focus a lot on the Big Ten.
Yeah, I got Ohio State playing Georgia this year for the championship. What were you saying, Bill?
I was saying Minnesota's ranked, or at least ranked for the moment. Teams they're likely to face. They're ranked now, and they're likely to still be ranked. They will play Iowa later in the year. That's November 19th. They have Ohio State October the 22nd, so a month from today. Yeah, that should always be good. They have Wisconsin. Their last game.
Where is that one?
I believe they're going to Penn State, but I have to double check.
No, Ohio State.
Ohio State.
No, they don't play Ohio State. They're saying they don't play. They play the teams that are ranked and are likely to still be ranked when they play them. Consider Penn State, Wisconsin, and Iowa.
Yeah.
And then everyone else is either unranked or is not likely to be ranked by the time they face them.
But I don't like that. Why, if you're in the Big Ten, you're in the conference, why you have to avoid people? You know, see, this avoiding. See, this is why Muhammad Ali is the greatest champion of all time. He didn't duck anybody. He didn't run from anybody. He fought everybody. I mean, why would he fight Ernie Shavers at the end of George Foreman wouldn't fight Ernie Shavers. He said, thank goodness I didn't get in there with him. So that's what I mean. This ducking people, it just, I don't know.
Well, now it's a matter of finance.
It's also a matter of the number of teams. You literally numerically can't play all the teams in the conference.
Yeah, and
you make the Big Ten 15. Yeah, you can't.
Yeah. Bill, by the way, Bill, the Pac-12 commissioner says that he doesn't see any more teams leaving the Pac-12.
Well, it's not for lack of trying. There's just no place for them to go at the moment. So the way things stand, the last team that was sort of being fairly heavily wooed was Oregon, right? The two big prizes of the Los Angeles teams, at least in part, well, in the case of USC, the cachet also, but the LA television market. Like, you have to remember, you're not just going after a team for pure sports reasons. You're also saying TV contracts. How do you make sure you get the biggest TV contract? Well, eyeballs. Los Angeles is a huge, huge market. I mean, it's this, you've got outside of New York, the New York City metropolitan market, there's no other larger television market. And so USC and UCLA are in a very special position because of that. And sure, Alabama wins a lot of games, but they can't say we're going to deliver to you X, 3.5, 4 million eyeballs. They can't. I mean, maybe nationwide they can, but not from their own local television market. The whole state of Alabama doesn't have that number of people that you have in the LA metropolitan market. So that gives them a powerful position. And no other team in the conference has that. I mean, the next closest in terms of size of market is, of course, the Seattle market, which is where Washington is. So there's nobody else who has that level of draw and cachet. There was interest in Oregon. I know that both the Big Ten, apparently, scuttlebutt, that both the Big Ten and the Pac-12 at least put out feelers, but nothing has gone beyond the feelers stage. And like I said, the next jewel in the prize will probably be Washington, if only just because you get to tap into that Seattle television market. But I'm not trying to be mean, but the rest of the Pac-12 is really not all that attractive to the big conferences. So, I mean, he's probably right. Do you think somebody's beating down the door to get the Oregon State Beavers Corvallis television market? I mean, Arizona is a decent-sized television market, but they haven't been anything special in football. And actually, it's not that big a market. I mean, Tucson area isn't that close to Phoenix. But they probably could sort of carry the Phoenix market a little bit. Arizona State used to have Herman Edwards and, a little bit of cachet, but now he's moved on or they've moved on from him. There's,
like you said, though, I mean, other than, the other two, possibly Washington or Oregon moving.
Maybe. Right. Those
would be the only two that I think that they would be attractive.
Right. Those are semi-attractive, but they're not. How do I put this? They're not opening of the bar attractive. They're closing of the bar attractive.
Right. After you wake up in the morning and you try to sneak out with your shoes in your hand, but getting a little after dark here. Anyway, let's talk a little NFL. Mr. Scott.
Yeah.
Mike Evans, he got suspended for one game.
Yes.
Do you think that Tom Brady gave Mike Evans the Jada Pinkett eye and sicked him on Lattimore?
Well, what? I don't know. Why did he get suspended?
Well, evidently you don't watch the highlights, Mr.
I missed that one.
He came off the bench. There was a scuffle actually between two other guys out on the field.
So the way it played out was there was a deep sideline area fade that Lattimore was covering. Who was it? Who was he covering? Brashad Perryman. He was covering Brashad Perryman. And Perryman was like asking for a flag. They didn't get the flag. Lattimore says something. Then Coach Emeritus Bruce Arians runs over and has words with Lattimore. Now Lattimore and Arians are going back and forth. Now Tom Brady decides to get involved because he's Tom Brady. And so now Brady is yapping with him. And it's at this point that,
And you got to point it out. I mean,
and then
you might not know, Mr. Scott, but there's a history between Lattimore and Mike Evans.
Oh, history's putting it mildly. Let's say there's a history in the Hatfield and the McCoys. They have feuded since, well, at least since Lattimore's been in the league. I mean, the entire time that Lattimore's been in the league, they've gone at it. Every time they play, right? And because they're in the same division, they play twice a year. So every time they've played, there has been some sort of unpleasantries between Mr. Evans and Mr. Lattimore. But this time, so Leonard Fournette steps between it. I may be playing Peacemaker, maybe playing Instigator. I don't know which one, but he steps between Brady and
Lattimore.
And Marshawn Lattimore. Lattimore now kind of jostles Leonard Fournette. Brady gets closer. Instead of going away, Brady decides to get closer to the action, right? And that's what triggers Mike Evans saying, well, I can't, have the franchise, Thomas Edward Patrick Brady Jr. get too close to this ruffian. And so he comes flying off the sidelines and doesn't even break stride, Mr. Scott. He, at a dead run, boom, right into Marshawn Lattimore, sends him, head over tea kettle, sort of sprawling across the ground. And then now it's on. Now two guys grab Evans. They're rolling around. People start coming up, off the field, off the benches. Boom, boom, boom. We have a full-on brawl. So, yes, they have had 4 incidents. Where I'm talking about where like something, where something more than just yelling at each other. I mean, they yell at each other all the time. But they've had at least 4 incidents where it got physical. And yes, they've also had 2 or 3 Twitter exchanges that I was very, very much following and it got heated. I think it'd be the term used. They've made it very, very clear that this is not just something they're doing. They clearly do not enjoy each other's company, and they look forward to letting each other know that they don't enjoy each other's company.
So are they both out? Are they both suspended?
No, I don't think.
No,
why aren't they both suspended?
They both got ejected. No, they both got ejected from the game, but Marshawn Lattimore was in the game. So he's not getting suspended because he was on the field. It's just like in hockey, right?
Okay.
If you're on the ice, you don't get suspended for getting in a fight. If you get off the bench and come on the bench, you get suspended, just like hockey.
Well, that's interesting because they play Green Bay this week.
Correct.
Tampa. So that's very interesting. Without Evans, I'm gonna have to look at that.
Yep. Well, in fantasy, it's a good time to have some of the other, which I do. I have some of those other receivers for the so I didn't get Mike Evans this year, so I'll be maybe throwing one or two of those guys in the rotation. And watch out for sneaky play. Watch out for Cameron Brate in the red zone area.
Bill, the Jets scored 14 points in a minute 22.
Correct.
To beat the Clowns 31-30.
Yes.
Now, I mean, once again, I'm kind of going to go back to the old school here because, I mean, that with certain amount of time left on the clock, you do not want to give the ball back to the other team. I don't care who the quarterback is. Anything can happen. Maybe a kickoff return. Anything can happen.
Sure.
So,
you can't give Joe Flacco that kind of time. You're exactly right.
Well, be it Joe Flacco, I mean, every garbage can gets a steak now and then. I mean, all these guys are NFL quarterbacks.
Let's be clear. Joe Flacco is a veteran quarterback who got a Super Bowl ring and still has one of the stronger arms in the league. Like, he has a very strong arm. If you don't do a good job of sticking on those receivers, and they did not do a good job.
Evidently, if you score 14 points in the minute 22, you didn't stick to the receivers.
No, well, okay. So, first of all, quiet as it's kept, that's one of the best receiving groups in football. That is a really talented group of receivers, right? That people may not know this, but Elijah Moore is a terrific slot receiver. That kid Garrett Wilson is going to be a superstar. They have got a really talented, and Corey Davis showed up. So, and that's injuries is what kept Corey Davis from being a really terrific player early in his career. He was on his way to being really great in his time in Tennessee, and he just couldn't stay healthy. So they have a very talented group of receivers. That's something that needs to be mentioned. And if you don't get pass rush, and where was their pass rush, right? Their pass rush is really what they build their defense around. And obviously, it's an energy game, right? If you ever played any level of football, you can pass rush only so many times before you start to slow down. So when you get later in a game, it's easy to start to see that sometimes not all that same amount of energy is left. But Joe Flacco, we make jokes. Even I make jokes about Joe Flacco. But he's a veteran. He's been playing this game a very long time. He has a very strong arm, an extremely talented group of receivers. So that a lot had to happen. Obviously, recovering an onside kick, very difficult. And although it was good for me because I was starting Nick Chubb in fantasy, it was not so good for the team for him to score that touchdown because it did give the other team time to come back and drive back. But what sort of gets lost in the shuffle is that missed extra point. Worst case scenario, if Cade York hits that extra point, it's a tie. They don't lose that game at least. And I mean, Cade York is one of the strongest legs in the league. So this is a guy that could, in practice, knocks him in for 66 yards, no problem. But that missed extra point is not being mentioned enough, right? At least if you get that extra point, at least it's a tie. It still looks terrible, but it's a tie.
Yeah, but if Nick Chubb stay
JK3, I'd like to ask you why this disdain and derogatory of the Clowns? What Where? I just was wondering, where does such venom? It seems to be such
Okay,
venom. Well, I just would like to know. I mean, is there any way that I could get an answer to that? I mean, are you gonna
okay.
respond?
Would you like to start from the time when I was 6 years old, or would you like to start from the time that I ran away from Cleveland and slept in the bus station when I was 16 years old,
Well,
because
I
that's
knew
how
there was
much
such.
I
Well,
detested Cleveland?
I don't know
Or
if I
or
want to
or
go into
or
quite
or or or,
soliloquy. I don't know if I
hold
want
on, or would you like to go back to the time when I played Pop Warner football and I wore Pittsburgh colors, and we played, our rival was a team called United Excavating, and they wore Cleveland Browns colors.
Yes,
So how
everyone
much?
knows about
So
them.
so
That is excavating.
it was not my intent to open up a wound. It was not
oh,
my intent to do anything of such nature. That wasn't my intent whatsoever. I just noticed there was this.
anything that is associated with Cleveland, I is considered clown territory. That's why I call it.
I get it.
That's why I call it clown land.
I'm convinced. I'm convinced. I
Okay.
get
So
it.
yeah. So ask and you shall receive.
Yeah, and somewhere out there, United Excavating, wherever you are now, he's still waiting for you. He's still ready. Well, I mean, let's be honest. This is a team that you was once an absolutely dominant franchise, right? They
Yeah.
7 championships in a 10-year period. We may never see that again, right? That may never happen ever
Well,
again.
the whole area was a bastion of football. I mean, Massillon, Ohio.
Oh yeah.
Small town. There was the whole thing all through up there, going up to Pennsylvania. It was just.
Yep.
Warren Harding. I mean, there's,
Right.
there's very,
Yeah.
like you say, and then,
Leo Hayden, the great Ohio State, Leo Hayden.
and then, we had our high school rivalries once a year. Like we might get a chance to play Granville, or one of those big, one of those so-called, Canton McKinley. At that time, we had a school called Cathedral Latin. That was also, an Ohio powerhouse. So yeah, I mean, and then right across the state line there in Pennsylvania, you had those boys, George Atkinson. You had Joe Namath right there at Beaver Falls. I mean, hey, so.
What the father of the Stoops? Wasn't he the coach at Cardinal Mooney for a real long time?
Yeah, see, Ursuline.
There were some guys that came from there up to Minnesota that played on the Gophers back in the 60s. I'm not sure if Sandy Stevens, did he come? Was he? But I know Denny Green was from Harrisburg.
Yeah.
But I went to school with some guys from Harrisburg. So that whole area that were very, very talented. Very talented.
Yeah, and hey, we had to put up with that Jim Brown legend for a long time until we got Joe Green and that draft class. Cleveland was not a good place to go to, but
And Sam Stevens was from Uniontown. If that helps.
Uniontown.
Yeah. So what about Tua? I mean. I know I've been kind of down on Tua, and various people have been down on Tua. His arm, and is he going to be able to get the ball out there in order for his receivers to get the ball? Well, the man threw 5 touchdowns? 6. I'm sorry, 6 touchdowns.
Really?
469 yards, so it's his third in the history of the franchise. Of course, the others ahead of him are both Dan Marino, but yes, he had one of the great games in the history of the franchise.
Comeback, Bill. What are you thinking about? I mean, what did you think about? Did you think Tua had it in him?
Well, I mean, I think any quarterback has that kind of game in them if they're an NFL quarterback. It's just that it takes, once again, a historical collapse by the defense. I mean, 3 of those touchdowns were I mean, you and I both played some defensive back in our days, Mr. King. I couldn't have done better, but I couldn't have done worse. I'll say that much. Massive breakdowns in communication. And in two of those situations, it was after, they were in what should have been prevent defensive mode, right? You should be playing a very soft coverage. How it is you as a safety are getting sucked up in those situations, I'll never know. I mean, the word safe is in the first part of your position. You're supposed to be wider than the widest and deeper than the deepest, and they were neither of those things. So, it was a massive mistake. But Tua played well. Like, to be fair, he played well. But the defense of the Ravens played horribly, particularly in the latter parts of that game where they should have been salting that game away. So it's a combination of things. He has an extraordinary amount of talent. I mean, I talked about the talent that Joe Flacco was throwing to, but maybe
he certainly has the fastest group of receivers in the NFL. At least
it's a really good group of receivers. But yes, very, very fast, but also really good. I mean, Gesicki is a really good tight end. They have a really good receiving back in Edmonds coming out of the backfield. And obviously, when you talk about what you have in, the blazing fast Tyreek Hill, and then you pair him with a guy like Jalen Waddle, it's an extraordinarily difficult group of to fit. So, yeah, but he played well.
Okay, Mr. Scott, what happened?
Well, I think too. I mean, left-handers don't get no respect. I mean, that's the way I think it is in the. If I could just make one thing in the NFL, left-handers don't get no respect. They have to. And if that's Kenny Stabler, and some of them have really proved that this other side, just looking into the mirror for these defenses, this can be quite a challenge for just like in boxing. They didn't like the left hand, they didn't like the southpaws. They would avoid them. They wouldn't fight Hagler for years, but then Hagler learned how to fight the other way and would fool him. Said no, when he gets in. So the left-handers have always been, but I mean, I like Tua. He's mobile. I mean, I think he's a really good athlete, and with all his weapons, that could be a real surprise team. I think it could be real. As the other hand, now the Minnesota Vikings.
We're gonna talk about them in a minute. I don't want you to. I'm not gonna let you get into that one because, when I talked to you last week and we was talking about the Eagles, well, I'm not even gonna comment on that.
Very poor impression. Very poor impression. Very poor impression.
We got it in the bag. I'm gonna. I don't even want to talk about this game. Well, let's see. Somebody had 2 interceptions. Jefferson was held to
I thought we weren't going to talk about it. I thought we weren't going to talk about it.
I want you to talk about it. What happened? Are the Eagles better than you guys thought they were? In the words of Danny Green?
Denny Green. And I mean, Hurts was impressive. There's no question about it, man. He was extreme. I mean, he was accurate on his passes, very dangerous on his runs, got a lot of separation out there. Yep. And so where the Vikings, I mean, they get the Lions here Sunday. If they can't beat them here, game over right away. Game over. These people have a conniption because that's a given win, and the Lions look good. I mean, their quarterback he's taking a lot of bumps. He's taking a lot, but I think he wants to make a statement. So it's a scary game for them.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, because you kind of poo-pooed the Lions too. 2.5. First time they've been favored in 20 years. I think it's good day for Demetrius. We'll see what happens Sunday. But Bill, Trey is out
I'm
for
going to be busy next week too. I mean, they'll have to let me know. I'll have to see what happens. I might not.
Yeah.
Oh
Yep.
yeah, oh yeah, Mr. Scott. I don't know if the Lions beat Minnesota. I don't know if I don't know if I'm going to send you an invitation next week. uh, Bill, what did you think? Trey Lance, he's out for the season, but
Yeah.
is this really the best scenario for the 49ers? I
Well,
mean,
here's what I will say.
they got Jimmy for $6 million. I mean, what the
Right.
hell?
Right. So here's what will happen. They were out of sync a little bit on offense. They will fall right back into sync on offense. The Trey Lance was still learning, and Jimmy Garoppolo's mastered that offense. He's at a level where he doesn't have to think, right? He knows it cold. He looks out, he says, oh, they're rotating, that safety's coming down late, they're going from two high to single high. I know exactly which route I'm going to go to. We're going to make this adjustment. I'm going to put this tag on the end of this play. He's going to take that. His guy's going to convert his crossing route to a stop route. This guy's going to convert that deep end is going to turn into a comeback route on the outside. Like, he doesn't have to think. So the offense is going to look more smooth. You're going to lose, obviously, some of that running aspect that you had with a guy like Trey Lance, but at least in the short term, it's going to help that team to win games, because all those things that you were trying to implement are implemented, right? You're not having to say, hey, in this situation, do that. He knows. You can put things back in that you were taking out of your offensive package because, we don't know if he knows this yet. Or, the whole book is now available. He knows everything. It's in your offense. And there were always players that believed in him more than they believed in Trey Lance. Anyway, Trey Lance was having to win over his teammates. Garoppolo didn't have to win over anybody, right? They've played, at least the veterans have played in a Super Bowl with him before. So at least in the short term, it will help them. Long term, it might hurt, because if Garoppolo does go out and they have a great season, and now they're trying to give the job to Lance again next year, you could have a mini, a little schism, a little problem with that. Because if they go right back to playing at a championship level, if they're in the NFC Championship game, win or lose with Garoppolo, and they try to give the job back to Lance next season, there'll be some guys who may push back against it. But in the short term, it's actually a good thing.
What do you think, Mr. Scott? I mean, Jimmy G, one of the things that, has been said, and it's shown that he's a little brittle. So, I mean, with Trey gone for the season, what happens if Jimmy G goes down?
Well, let's flip that coin. If they had gone ahead and said to Garoppolo, I mean, heck, he's taking you to a Super Bowl. I mean, what more can the man do? He done got you to the thing. You give him some help so that he can get you over the hump. He did his part. And then you got a great backup with Trey. So if something were to happen, then these things happen organically. Anytime you try to get in the analytics and get in all this foolishness, this is what happens. I mean, this guy has.
This has nothing to do with analytics. I don't know why you're missing analytics. The analytics will tell you not to draft Trey Lance, actually.
Bill Belichick is upset that he traded Garoppolo. He's upset because that was the plan when he knew Brady was going to be going, and he had Garoppolo, and he trained him. He was ready to go, but I'm not sure what happened. Brady stayed.
I'm sure what happened.
Mr. Kraft is what happened.
Brady went over his head to the owner. That's what happened.
Mr. Kraft is what happened.
So that fell apart. So, yeah, I mean, they should have played Garoppolo anyway. He's a veteran guy.
When it has nothing to do with analytics, which has got the Trey Lance.
Bill. When you go off on your diatribe, I don't stop you. So let Mr.
I'm not stopping him. I'm protecting him.
He's an analytic guy. He thinks analytics. He thinks that can predict the world is flat. The way
trying to correct Mr. Scott on analytics is like spitting into the wind. So and I know you know the results of that.
I just think Garoppolo would have been the best route to take with the team. Go through camp with that. You've got a young guy. I mean, what's wrong with sitting a year or two? I mean, I don't understand. I understand, they have the rookie salary, they have that, but what's wrong? What's wrong with sitting and building the team up? I mean, that's just my take on it. I would have kept Garoppolo to start right from the beginning. I wouldn't have made no change.
Mr. Scott, you always talk about how the young people have no patience, and then you wonder why they don't sit him. Well, hey, that's not the way. It's not like it used to be, where you sit behind, like Aaron Rodgers had to sit behind Brett Favre, or Steve Young had to sit behind Joe Montana. Those days are kind of gone. Yeah, it's another thing that's went by the wayside. Mr. Scott, are you surprised by the Raiders starting 0-2?
Yeah, I am. They look kind of disheveled. They look this looks like this could be tough for them. I am very surprised about that. I thought when they got Devontae, I thought they were I liked Carr. So far this year, I don't like Carr. I don't like what I've seen of him this year. So I'm surprised by that.
Bill, what's your thoughts? Carr says he's still adapting to McDaniel's system.
And he is. Now, as I've said before, he's played in a lot of different offensive systems. He'll learn this one eventually, and it'll look better. But let's not pretend that he's running the same offense that he was last year. He's not. It's a very different offense. So I don't know how far you want to go down this, so I'll try to shorten it. But the Earhart offensive tree is what this is coming from, right? Because Belichick, when he brought in the guys that he brought in to create that offense around Brady, wanted to do everything around taking advantage, particularly of things in weaknesses of zone defense, right? That's what most of it's about. Attacking areas that are open against zone defenses. And occasionally they have some man beaters too, don't get me wrong. But most of it's geared to that. Contrast that with everything that was based around the old West Coast offense, which is all timing based and not trying to just say work open against this area. No, when 3-step, 5-step, 7-step, be here, boom, there's the ball. We don't care what the defense is doing. We're going to dictate to the defense. We're not going to adapt to the defense. Now it's the opposite approach mentally. You're now instead trying to attack areas that are open in the defense instead of imposing your plan on the defense. He's played now, this is his fourth different system that Derek Carr has played in his career with the Raiders. And yes, he's learning it. He'll be learning it the rest of this season. It should get better as he learns it more. And then obviously next year, he'll probably look really good. But it's a different system with different language. It's like, once again, if you speak two languages, but one of them you've been speaking for a couple of years and one you just started learning, now try to speak what you say, the same things you used to say in the language you learned 2 years ago and knew last year, and now try to speak the same thing you said, but in a language you just learned. You're not going to sound very fluent. You're not going to sound like you know what you're talking about. You're going to be stumbling and making mistakes. That's what's happening.
The Steelers, I think last week, let one get away.
Yep.
Mitch Trubisky, he missed a lot of downfield guys that were open. And he actually, I think he gave the Pats the ball with almost 6 minutes left on the clock. And we never got the ball back. So, Bill, do you think that perhaps Mike is being a bit too cautious with Pickett? Saying, he still thinks that he needs a couple more, to get a little bit more experience under his belt. And, of course, Trubisky started tonight. So it's evident that Mike doesn't have a sense of urgency. But what do you think, Bill?
Well, this is not – first of all, this is not a great roster. Let's just be very honest. It's not a great – the offensive line is kind of a mess. And their secondary is not a particularly good one. They do have a really good pass rush. it's of a decent pass rush. They had an elite level pass rush, obviously, before Trent John Watt went down. Once they lost him, they now went from being an elite level pass rush to just a good pass rush. And when you have a sort of shaky secondary and just an okay pass rush, you no longer have an elite defense. They were never that good against the run. Last year, they were bad against the run. This year, they were not great against the run. And styles make fights. What do the Browns want to do? Pound you in the run game. So it's like going up against a body puncher and being bad at taking body shots. It's a bad combination. So this is not a team that's frankly built to win this year. And for them to even have a chance, they needed to stay 100% healthy, and they didn't, right? So when you have a roster that's thin, you have very few playmakers, particularly on offense. Pickens is still learning the offense because he's a rookie. That's to be expected. He's essentially a specialist at this point. What you like to do at the NFL level is be able to move your receivers around. At this point, Claypool can play in the slot. He can play X. He can play Z. You'd like to do that with Pickens at some point, but he hasn't mastered. He doesn't know how to play in the slot yet. He really really knows how to play one position. So you have to teach him the other two positions in your offense. That's going to take weeks. So especially once again, we now live in the era of shorter training camps. You don't go to training camp for 2.5 months anymore, right, James? That's gone. I mean, it used to be in the old days, guys would show up, in second, third week of July, you'd be in camp until the season started. You get 1 week off, but practically until 1 week before the season, you're in training camp. That's gone. That's out of here. Guys aren't in camp for that long anymore. So when you bring rookies in, you hand them an iPad with the offense on it. You say study on your own, show up for practice, but you can't learn the offense through reps you're getting in practice anymore because you don't get that many reps. So it's going to take a while for most rookies to really settle in the way the game is played nowadays. So, I mean, you're doing what
if I could comment on the Pittsburgh thing, I mean, why not? See, you're going to say I'm flip-flopping because I said San Francisco should have kept Garoppolo, but I'm saying Pittsburgh, why not play Pickett? I mean, the other guy is a perfect backup. He's been around, he's played, but he's not. He just reeks of backup player. Well, if you put this young guy in there, why not do it? See, this is not a one-size-fits-all thing. What works for one team doesn't work for the other team.
But this is a Mike Tomlin decision.
He's a number one pick.
But this is a Mike Tomlin decision. Just like it was.
I disagree. I guess I disagree with. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm pretty sure that if you had asked Mike Tomlin who he would have picked as his number one quarterback, it may not have been Mr. Pickett, even though Pickett has been practicing with the Steelers for years because Pitt and the Steelers share a practice facility. But I believe if you listen to Mike Tomlin, he wanted to draft Malik Wilson, wasn't it?
Willis.
Malik Willis. He's just like he was instructed to take this guy. He is, I think he's going to make sure that the decision when Pickett starts is going to be his, and it's going to be for the good of the team. I'm with you. I thought that he should have, that Pickett should have started tonight from the way that Trubisky looked last week, and from Trubisky's history. I'm with you. You should get Pickett in there and let him take his lumps. But then again, I'm not Mike, and I do believe in Mike Tomlin. So, if he says that Pickett's not ready, then and I mean it's not about whether I think it's there's all the talk about whether or not this will be Mike's first losing season. I don't think he's concerned as much about that as he's concerned about what happens after this year. because
Well,
he
I
knows
know.
he knows that they kept Big Ben 2 years too long. He knows that.
I know you're a Tomlin disciple. I know that you're kiss the ring, Tomlin. I understand that. But I think that sometimes you have to kind of look out of the bite. He's done a great job there. I mean, he's one of my favorite coaches. I mean, he coached here, which I still don't understand how he became Pittsburgh coach. He was defensive backs coach here for 1 year with Denny Green, and then he gets hired at Pittsburgh as a head coach, a storied franchise in this league. I mean, it's really something,
Yeah.
But I would have done Pickett. I think Trubisky is a backup. We'll see. This could be just some type of patchwork.
Well, next year that might be the case. Pickett will be the starter, and Trubinsky or somebody else will be the backup. But I'm going to get to your favorite part here, Mr. Scott, and I know how much you love these over and unders. So I'm going to start with the Texans plus 2.5 at the Bears.
Boy. Well, I don't know what to think of Davis Mills. I mean, I'm not sure this guy is a real quarterback. I'm not sure the weather there. Gosh, it could be a little wet. Could be Soldiers. It's at Soldiers Field, isn't it?
It's at Soldiers Field. I'll tell you what the weather is here in a minute.
A terrible field. It's the worst field in football. I mean, I don't even know who I like in the game. I don't know enough about the Bears. I'd say it's an under.
The Raiders minus 2.5 at the Titans. And you saw what Buffalo just did to the Titans, right?
Yeah, the Raiders need to get well. So, I mean, I think it could be a good team to get well against.
Okay. Bill, who you got? Texans versus Bears. Texans plus 2.5.
Okay, so the Texans are getting 2.5?
Yes.
Huh. That's an interesting game. That's a fast I will actually go Bears here. The Bears may not win it outright, but I don't think that's an interesting game. I think that the Bears may not win it outright, but I don't think they're going to lose by more than 2.5 is really close too. It's almost a pick 'em when you're saying 2.5, but I will say the Bears, but just barely.
Okay. The Raiders minus 2.5 at the Titans.
Yeah, so the Raiders are giving 2.5. I think that they'll cut.
No. The Raiders are getting.
They're getting. Oh, well then, yeah, Raiders easy. Oh yeah.
Okay. The Chiefs minus 6.5 against the Colts.
Yeah, the Chiefs will cover that. The Colts are in a bit of a tailspin.
And the Bills minus 5.5 at the Dolphins.
Ooh.
The Bills might win that, but it's a short week. I don't like that number. The number's close, but I think they don't. I don't think they cover. It's 5.5, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I don't think they cover.
Over.
The Bills are giving the Dolphins 5.5 at the Dolphins.
Right. I don't think they get to 5.5. I think that's a 3-point game.
Okay. What's your thoughts on that, Mr. Scott?
Over.
Okay. The Chiefs giving 5.5 to the Colts at Indianapolis.
Oh, Chiefs, Kansas City, all the way. I mean, Kansas City. I'm going to Kansas City. Bottle of Kansas City wine, 6th Street and Vine Street, Kansas City, all the way.
You got some pretty good women there.
Okay, Mr. Scott, the Lions plus 6.5 at the Vikings.
Oh, yeah. Like I say, if they can't beat them, it's game over.
That's
I mean,
straight
if
up.
right
That's straight
away,
up. What are you gonna do with this 6.5?
it's
I know. I know you think they're gonna beat them straight up, but what are you gonna do about that 6.5? You think the Vikings are gonna cover?
over.
Over. Okay. All right. Um. Let's see.
Sometimes that's a cheap way out. But no, I'm gonna make a pick. I'm gonna make a pick because I'm gonna make a pick.
We already know what your pick is going to be. Your pick is going to be the Vikings. I mean, come on now. Who else are you going? You going to pick the Twins? I mean,
I'm going to pick. I need to pick. Need to come out of my mouth. It doesn't need to come out of your mouth. It need to come out of my mouth. The pick that I make.
Okay. What's your straight up pick, Mr. Scott?
I'm not doing it, but I'm taking the 6.5 points for the Lions. I'm going to take the Lions. I think it's a better Lions team, and I really think that this could really be something at the beginning of the year that can be some kind of catalyst for their season. And I am not sold on Kirk Cousins. What I saw last week, I saw somebody that was skittery, ability to run from the rush or make any kind of adjustments. So I think the Lions are a hungry team, and I take that 6.5.
You take the 6.5. Okay. All right, Bill, who you taking there?
Well, as I said before, if you just blindly, if you followed what I said before and blindly, every time you saw a big number, went with the underdog, you would have made a nice bit of money. Remember what I told you before? Things haven't changed that much. 6.5. Look how few games are won by 6 and by 6.
Well, come on, Bill. Last week we had some 9.5, some 10.5. Yeah, I mean,
that was free money. I hope people have collected some of that free money. But 6.5 is still too much for me. Yeah, I'm taking the Lions too. 6.5 is a lot of points.
Are you giving that 5.5 to the Dolphins from the Bills?
No, I answered that one already.
Okay.
I said I thought the Bills would win, but I thought they'd win by 3 especially off a short week. They just played. No.
Okay. Mr. Scott, the Ratbirds minus 3.5 against the Patriots.
Wait a minute. Who's the Ratbirds?
He's talking about Baltimore.
Oh, I like Baltimore. Yeah, I think I was surprised that Jets could even get a win. I mean, I like Baltimore. I think they got a good setup. What is it? And they're minus. Let me see. What is it?
They're minus 3.5 they're playing at the Patriots.
Yeah. Yeah, they got a quarterback. They got an offense. I hate that they lost the receiver. Doggone it, my man from here, Minnesota. I just really hate that they lost him. But he was really coming on strong too.
Yep.
So that's that kind of hurts. And New England, they're tricky. Belichick, he has some tricks up his sleeve and stuff. You have to really watch him. He had banana peels and all that kind of stuff. You really have to watch him. But I still think Baltimore is better. So,
the Bungles against the Jets. The Bungles are. Listen at this, Mr. Scott. The Bungles are giving 4.5 to the Jets at home.
Boy, I don't know if the Jets are any good. I mean, they kind of surprised you first game. That can be a. I have to. Boy, I don't like giving up points. See, that's the whole thing. I don't really like. I don't like that. It's at home. You know what? I might take the Jets in the points. Yeah.
Bill?
The number was how many? 4.5?
Yeah.
That's probably right about right, too. Those guys are good on that one. The hook might be just enough, though. If it were 4, I might have gone the other way. So the and a half, the hook might be enough to get me to lean Jets there. I do think the Bengals win, but I don't think they cover.
What about the Ratbirds? 3.5 against the Patriots.
I think they do cover. I think the Patriots just will struggle. They're the opposite of the Jets. It sounds funny to say. Boy, how things change. But the Jets are made for big plays, right? They have big play receivers. They have a quarterback, old though he is, has a big arm. The exact opposite. The Patriots have a quarterback who does not have a very strong arm. They have very little speed on this team anywhere. I mean, look at everyone on this team. Who can run 4.4, right? N'Keal Harry is gone because of injury. They're trotting out guys like Jacoby Myers. That's a guy who's like a 4.61. Kendrick Bourne, who's like a 4.58. Their tight ends are not dynamic. I mean, Hunter Henry's decent, but he's not a blazing fast guy either. Michael McCorkle-Jones is not a particularly strong arm. Ramondre Stevenson is not particularly fast. They don't have Damian. Is it Damian Harris? Yeah, Damian Williams is with the right. I always get those two. I think it's Damian Harris, but he's not. They don't have anybody who's going to break a big one on you. You don't have to worry about giving up big plays. They don't have big play potential anywhere on their offense. So yes, I feel like they're going to cover that number.
Okay, Bill, the Eagles -6.5 at the Commanders.
Well, I like the Eagles to win that game, but 6, and I just don't believe in that kind of number. You'll almost never see me unless it's like a real disparity in those two teams, and those teams are not that far apart. People are sleeping on the Commanders. That team's going to win some games people aren't expecting them to win. So I'm going to go with the Eagles, but they're not going to cover that number. They're not going to cover 6.5. That's too many points.
Okay, so you're going to go with the Commanders.
Well, the Commanders are going to Commanders once you add in the number, yeah.
Okay, the Saints -2.5 against the Panthers.
I think the Saints cover that. The Saints will win that by at least 3.
Mr. Scott, the Saints against the Panthers. Saints are giving the Panthers 2.5. You're playing at the Panthers. Baker Mayfield get the victory over Jameis Winston.
Jameis didn't get hurt last week, did he?
He did. Well, I don't know. Maybe his arm did. Would he throw 3 interceptions last week, Bill?
Yeah, well, that wasn't because of injury. That was because he was pressing.
Panthers at home. Early in the season, I would take that. They're at home. They're getting a few points. 2.5. Yeah, I'd take that. I'm going to take that one.
Okay, what about the Eagles and the Commanders? The Eagles are giving the Commanders 6.5 at home.
Well, it should be over. I only see that as an over. I couldn't take either way on that one. I would take it over, though.
Okay. All right. The Jags +7.5 playing the Chargers. Mr. Scott?
I'm not going to do the off the board. I'll go ahead and make picks, but that would definitely be an off the board kind of thing because I don't know what the Chargers. They seem like they laid down. Jags might be on the upstring. They're getting 7.5 points. I'll take them. I'll take the points.
The Rams giving 3.5 to the Cardinals.
I'm going to stick with the Cardinals. I don't care what anybody says. I'm going to stick with them until the rails come off. They get off the track, and I'm sticking with them.
Okay. Bill, the Jags +7.5 at the Chargers.
Yeah, I hate those numbers. 7.5 scares me. I'm going to go with the Chargers, but I don't like it. I don't like that number. I just think the Chargers get well in this game, though.
Okay. The Rams -3.5 at the Cardinals.
Yeah, I think the Rams cover that number. I don't think they cover it easily, though. I think it's an uncomfortable cover, but I think they get to it. I think they get to at least 4 points over.
Here's a good one for you, Bill. The Falcons plus 1.5 at the Seahawks.
Oof. Well, I guess one of these teams will be knocked out of the running for the first overall pick. Just because I like the Falcons' defense a little better, I'll go with the Falcons. But I don't love either team, obviously. If I were to go, listen, Mr. Scott, say if I were to go off the board, I would take that one off the board. But I won't. I'll go ahead and make a pick, and I'll go with the
Falcons. The Packers plus 2.5 at the Bucks. Bill.
Yeah, I think that with the combination of injured players and suspended players, a shorthanded Bucks will not be able to hold up to the revenge redemption tour of one Aaron Charles Rodgers.
Who you got there, Mr. Scott? The Packers plus 2.5 at the Bucks.
Brady's been money. He's at home. He's been money. He's his last stand. Aaron hasn't shown that much interest in really doing this thing like he normally does. I'm gonna go with the money man, Brady.
The Falcons getting 1.5, Mr. Scott, at the Seahawks.
Yeah, that is a toss-up game. The Seahawks are at home, so I'll take the home team. And neither one of them impressed me. Neither coach impresses me. Whole thing, terrible towns, terrible teams, terrible people, terrible coaches. So.
Okay, Mr. Scott, the 49ers minus 1.5 at the Broncos.
Well, I want to hear Bill on this first.
Okay, Bill, Jimmy G or Russell Wilson?
Well, I like the 49ers, and not just because of Garoppolo and the sort of comfort level, but they're the more talented roster. And they've gelled together longer. I mean, Russell Wilson is stepping into a situation where, he was basically a few months ago introducing himself to everybody. So they haven't quite fallen into sync yet. There's players on their team who are super talented. They haven't figured out how to integrate. They haven't managed to integrate Albert Ekwonabom into their offense. The one, big target he had to the tight end was to Saubert, the backup tight end, which I thought was kind of interesting. They have a super talented group of receivers, but they haven't managed to really sync them up yet. Cortland Sutton should be destroying people, and he's not. And when you add in that they have Jerry Jeudy, and they have a lot of talent on this offense. 2 terrific running backs. Like, there's a lot of talent, but it hasn't gelled yet. And the 49ers, like I said, have really synced together, and now you bring back the veteran. I have a feeling the 49ers are about to get well and sort of look good for the rest of the season.
The Cowboys minus 2.5 at the Giants, Bill.
Okay, so that's interesting. The Giants are better. They're an improved team, and they're going to throw a real scare into Dallas. I think Dallas survives, but I think it's going to be a nip and tuck affair. I think they win it, but I think 3 is the number. So I think they'll cover the 2.5. But once again, another barely, like a last-second field goal kind of cover. I think this game goes right down to the wire, and watch out for Maher to kick that last-second field goal with 7 seconds on the clock.
Okay, Mr. Scott, you wanted Bill to answer first, so. The Cowboys minus 2.5 at the Giants.
Well, I thought it was 49ers and Broncos.
That's the other one. That one's only 1.5. You can answer either one of them first. If you want the 49ers -1.5 at the Broncos? You can
Yeah,
answer that one first.
and Broncos, they do have talent, but I'm really wondering if Russell Wilson is any good anymore. I mean, he looks like he might have sold them a bill of goods. I mean, he might not really be no good no more. And so, I mean, they're at home. Normally that's what I would really look at, Denver at home, because that's a really tough place to play and win. But I think this 49ers are more solid. And I think I'm gonna really watch this to see if he's no good. I'm kind of on the fence of it whether he's no good no more. It just doesn't look like himself.
Too much Sierra, huh?
Well, I don't know if you can get too much.
Cowboys -2.5 at the Giants, Mr. Scott.
That backup quarterback with the Cowboys, I've been done with him for years. I am tired of looking at him. I don't want to see him, and I don't want to watch him play. So I think the Giants, they're turning the page, and they got to start doing something. Their fans really want to see something. The Yankees are taking all of the air out of the place. It'd be nice if they can get a win to. So yeah, they're at home. I think I'll take them. We got a young quarterback that's looking pretty good. So.
I know this is 2022, and you're supposed to be politically correct, but I gotta doubt a guy's judgment that goes from Dana Kirkpatrick. I mean, Dana Patrick to Blue Earth. Really? Are you kidding me? I mean, that's just me. But Mr. Scott, your final thoughts for the evening.
Well, my final thoughts is, all rise for the judge. I mean, I think that this is exciting to see him break this home run record. Oh, I mean, I think he's just going to knock the hole in that thing. He's just almost hitting home runs every day. And it's so funny how they use these numbers with the home runs. The Sammy Sosa years and the Barry Bonds years and the Mark McGwire year, and they condoned it all. I mean, they didn't say those home runs didn't count. I mean, so if they counted, why don't they? They're on their record, but then they won't count it. Oh, they're in the steroid thing. Well, they didn't do anything about it. But Judge looks like he is primed. Well, let's see how much time left. We got one more. I think there's only one more week left, isn't it?
Yeah. Let's see. The Yankees won tonight 5-4, but Judge didn't hit the home run. They're playing the Red Sox. The Yankees won in 10, so I think we have another week, don't we, Bill? Is it about another week?
Yeah. Yep. They're right.
So I mean, I really want to see him do this. And then I'm very curious to see where he's going to sign. If he's going to stay with the Yankees, it's going to be a bidding war. The Yankees blew it. They blew it. They should have upped the ante when he wanted to sign. They had it. So he's the hottest thing in baseball. And we'll see. I mean, baseball is so different out of pitching. Guys throwing a no-hitter and they take him out. Guys throwing a no-hitter, they take him. You won't even let him just finish the game and take him out. 3 or 4 relievers have to pitch every game. I mean, Verlander the other day was pitching 5 innings to get somebody, 10 strikeouts. I take him out. We can beat this team. We don't need you no more. We can just blah blah blah. So it's a different thing, but the Twins are out of it. American League Central, there's nobody. None of the teams are no good. Cleveland's no good. Chicago's no good. But one of them will have to get in, so they'll go right away. They'll be done. I don't know. I don't know who is going to win the American League. I really, the Yankees, they have hit a dry spell. They're not hitting. Only Judge is the only one hitting. I mean,
Gio Stanton hit. He's hitting
204. He's hitting 204. He's hitting 204. His batting average is 204. So,
but he hit the grand slam walk-off the other night, right?
But 204 average is not going to get you very far. I don't care.
No.
He's become a Dave Nicholson, all or nothing. I mean, so yeah, but that's my final thoughts.
Well, let me get a thought from you here, Mr. Scott. Right now he's at 60. So by the time we get on the air next Thursday, over or under 63 home runs?
I'm gonna go to the over. It's a very shaky over because it depends on how the race is going. I mean, they have a lead, and I mean, if they got it taken care of and it's all set, they're going to sit him. He's not going to play that much. So
I don't think that they could sit Judge. I don't think the fans would allow him to sit Judge.
Yeah, but they don't want him to go out there and fool around, break his leg or something, fooling around with some game if they've already got it clinched. So they want to make sure he's available. So, but yeah, I'm going to take the over. I'm pulling for him to do it. So yeah, I'm taking it.
All right, well, hey, as always, good having you here, Mr. Scott. Bill, your final thoughts for the evening, and do you think Judge will be over or under 63 by this time next Thursday?
I don't think he's over 63. I think he gets to 62, though. I think he breaks Maris's record. And my final thought. So on this day in 1969, Willie Mays becomes the second player in the history of the game to join the 600 home run club. And, at that point, only Ruth, right? Only Babe Ruth, George Herman Ruth, had hit 600 home runs. We often talk about, terms like the greatest of all time. People want to throw a lot of people up there as the greatest of all time at this and greatest at that. When it comes to all around baseball players who could do everything at a high level, it's difficult to come up with too many players who match up to, who can contend with, who deserve to be mentioned with William Howard Mays Jr., who thankfully is still with us at 91 years of age. And to try to put in perspective what he did and the way he did it, so here's a person whose career WAR is 156.1, which is insane. I mean, it's difficult to that's essentially three Hall of Fame worthy players, right? Here's a person whose career OPS is 940, who had over 2,000 hits, over 1,900 RBIs, stole 338 bases. Had over 3,000 hits. Over 3,000 hits, over 2,000 runs batted in, 301 batting average, right? 660 career home runs. I mean, his numbers are just one's crazier than the next, it seems. 12 times he won the Gold Glove. He's Rookie of the Year. He was 2 times the MVP, won the batting title, won Player of the Year. Everything essentially that could be done, he did. His career we'll never see anything quite like it. And it started early. I mean, look at at age 23 in 1954, he plays in 151 out of 154 games. And as I said, he's one of the youngest players in the league, or one of the youngest starting players in the league. He had 13 triples that year. He had 41 home runs that year. He had 110 RBIs that year. He stole only 8 bases. He's still sort of learning the league to some extent, I guess. But he had a 345 batting average, a 667 slugging percentage. 23 years of age, he wins his first MVP. Crazy. And then, 2 years later, he has maybe one of the best years anybody's ever had in the history of the game. It's only one of them. At the age of 25, he hits 40 home runs, right? 40 home runs. Drives in a shockingly low number of RBIs, just 84. That was the thing that sort of caught me off guard. But the rest of his numbers are ludicrous off the charts, right? 319 batting average, slugging percentage of 555, And I mean, everything he does at a super high level. 12 triples, 190 hits. I mean, just everything's there. Like, he does everything at such a high level. Steals 40 bases, right? He's a 40 base. Once again, at a time when people didn't steal, the base stealing really kicks up in the 60s and in the 70s. But to do that,
that's because the brothers came. That's because the brothers came.
And also, you saw the era of when they put on all the artificial turf, right? So people started hitting the ball into the turf and getting on base, sort of cheaply getting on base and then stealing. So you turn a single into a double. But he does these things at a high level. He does them at a high level for a very long time. So he's able to play at a super high level. He plays at a super high level really until about his late 30s. He's still playing at a high level at 39 years old. His last really great season, in fact, is at the age of 40 in 1971, right? At the age of 40, he's down to playing 136 games a season, but he still manages to drive in 112 runs. He has a 425 on base percentage. I mean, he's still playing at a really high level. 23 steals at age 40. I mean, he was just such a great player. He was so great at everything, right? And to be that great for so long is the thing that just sort of stands out to me. That he can be that great for so long, to be able to play that well for so long. And I hope younger people sort of start exploring his career. We won't see another player like Willie Mays again. He'll do everything, a true 5-tool player, do everything at the level he did it for as long as he did it. We'll see what happens to some of the guys. There's some great young players, but I don't know if any of them will play that well until they're in their late 30s or early 40s, as he did. He was just, one of one, sui generis, as they say in Latin.
Well, Bill, I think he stands at the top. But when you look at all the people he played in that era, when you look at, oh my goodness,
he overlapped with Mantle. At one point, right, Willie Mays, Duke, just in New York alone, right? Yeah. You're going this way, you got Mantle up north in the Bronx,
Maris,
towards Queens, right? You got to go down to Brooklyn. There's Duke Snyder, right, a Hall of Famer.
Yogi Berra. I mean, these guys superb. Look at their stats. I mean, it's.
I was just talking about the center fielders of the three teams in New York, Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, hey, look forward to catching everybody next week, and have a great one.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, everybody. If I'm in town, I'll after the games and everything, I'll respond. I'm in town. Might be out of town.
You going to your first rap concert, Mr. Scott? I see. You going to see 50, Mr. Scott?
Little Yachty. He's gonna go catch Little Yachty.
Have a good one, Bill. I'll see you later, man.
Take care.